Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today's video is going to be looking at a handful of sims, sort of rounding out all the sims we've been doing for the past few weeks, hitting on the last little bits before the raid actually drops, and answering questions about them. Race sims for Demo, Destro, and Af, looking at the better hero talent combinations, not all six for races and all kind of stuff. We're going to have embellishment sims, which have changed a little bit over the past week or so, not a whole lot. And then looking at a bug sheet that Malakat's compiled for current bugs that exist on live for Warlock. Now, heads up, the website has indeed been updated a bit since it was last, mentioned here a few days ago. It'll be getting embellishment updates with other things, trinket updates, all that in the next couple days as well. Be closer to the actual raid launching. We'll also have the tier elite raid video coming out on the channel in a few days. You want to see that? Check it out. Come back. All that, and let's get it rolling. All right, now getting into race sims here. All these links will be down below in the description if you guys want them. All the sims for this, races and embellishments, all that, and also Malakat's bug sheet, which we'll look over in a minute here. So I went Orc probably a few weeks ago before launch. I'm still playing Orc. However, if you look at Destro here, Orc is not doing incredibly well. It's fine. It's not great. It's behind by about 7K. And to be fair, I want to say here that when you're doing 1.3 million DPS, 7K, it's still a decent bit, but it's not as much as it may seem. But we're going to look at universal applicability here for every race and go from there. As far as Destro's concerned, Mechanome's on top. It's been the way for a long time, with Mechanome being pretty solid here. Dwarf, Tauren, Draenei, which is a little surprising. Troll, Human, Goblin, all within within margin of error for the most part. It's 641, and this is more or less within reason, right, for these four here. But the biggest race on top being Mechanome here, Orc being about here, then Night Elf Knight, Xanilary Troll, Gnome, Monkhart Orc, so on and so forth. Dark Iron Dwarf here, Dragthyr here, which is not available yet. People are going to see it, so there it is. Void Elf, Kultiran, Worgen, Undead down here, more, and Volpira with Zandalaris up here. So Mechanome, Dwarf, Tauren, Draenei, Orc being okay-ish, but keep that in mind looking at the next two here. So moving on to demonology here, we have Orc on top. This is basically one and the same. Don't worry about this. Same profile, just whatever. We have Orc on top here at 1.349 million DPS. Second, Mechanome behind by about 4.5K. Troll, Tauren, Monkhart Orc, Dwarf, Draenei, Dark Iron Dwarf, and then so on and so forth. The mediocre races for damage, all that, Dragthyr, Volpira, Worgen, Undead, so on and so forth. Orc, Demonology, pet bonuses, just strong in general. We knew Orc was going to be good for a reason, for a handful of reasons, and one of them is because of how strong it is for Demonology. It got even stronger in Woolworth compared to where it was in Dragonflight, and you can see that here, it is back on top. The next closest race is Mechanome, 4.5K behind, followed by Troll, dropping off a bit more here, 4.5K to basically 8.5K. And that's a pretty substantial drop off from second to third, right? So for the most part, while Mechanome might not be on top here, still up there, still looking pretty decent. Dropping down, or I guess looking over at Affliction here, this is what really, at least for me, more or less decides on what I want to play. We know that Af and Demo are likely the front runners in their palace right now. And on top here, we have Orc, followed by Mechanome, Void Elf, surprisingly, but they have a DPS racial, which Affliction has Haunt and Shadow's Embrace modifiers. Monkhart Orc, Dark Iron Dwarf, Draenei, Human, Troll, so on and so forth down below. But on top here, once again, Orc, same profile here. Orc, then about a 300 DPS difference between Mechanome, Void Elf, Monkhart Orc, Dark Iron Dwarf, and all of that. So going back to Destro here, while Orc might not be as strong, Mechanome is on top here. Demonology, which is right here, you got about a 4.5K disparity favoring Orc, and then you've got about a 300 DPS disparity favoring Orc here as well for Affliction. So while Mechanome might be on top for destruction, in a pretty solid spot across the board for almost everything, right? I think you're going to see a decent bit of Demo in the raid and a bit of Af in the raid as well. I don't think you'll see much Destro at all unless they buff it more. With that being the case, it's pretty close, but I would give the slight advantage. I mean, if you're looking at two specs in the raid being Demo and Af, Orc's on top of both. So I play Orc. I'm going to stick with Orc, but if you want to play anything else, feel free to do so. Links down below to all these sims, but people have been asking, and here is that. So, moving on to embellishment sims. Now, I ran these 3 days ago when the embellishments were fixed. I guess fixed most recently. I don't know. Maybe they're fixed again. I couldn't tell you. But I want to show single embellishment sims here, and look at the top gear sims, right? So briefly getting into Affliction, we have on top elemental focusing lens. This is basically Shadow Flame embellishment in a sense from Dragonflight, where it's a strong bit of damage, but it's single target based. There's not really any AoE scaling here or relevance or whatever. It's sort of like Shadow Flame compared to, like, you know, Blue Silken Lining, whatever. Dragonflight, where you had that Blue Silken Lining master scaling, where it was relevant everywhere in single target, cleave, AoE, rating, Mythic Plus, versus Shadow Flame being basically good on bosses in single target and everywhere else. Affliction also has Haunt, Shadow's Embrace damage modifiers, which do indeed increase damage abilities like this. So this is why it's higher here. Second, you have Symbiosis, which is a little weird. Not really sure as to why it's there. It's okay, but like I haven't seen it as high in other sims. Followed by Dawn Thread Lining, which is the critical strike chance increase, simming at 61% uptime here. And you have Dark Moon Sigil Ascension in fourth here, and not much disparity between these either, honestly. Dark Moon Sigil is a universal trait. It's good in single target, good in AoE. It's a stacking secondary stat increase. It's good everywhere compared to, like, you know, focusing lens being Shadow Flame, more or less single target based, right? To a similar extent, Dawn Thread Lining also pretty good in most places. It does fall at times. You drop below 80% health, which is like, you know, happens sometime, but either way, both Dawn Thread and Dusk Thread sitting here. Apparently these are working as well. They're just really bad, for those who are wondering. Slippers and gloves, all that, just very bad. So that's Affliction. When it comes to Demonology, on top we have Dark Moon Sigil Ascension, ahead by about 2.3k, followed by Blessed Weapon Grip, which is not too bad. Dark Moon Sigil Radiance, then Symbiosis. Then here we have Elemental Focusing Lens, behind by about 5k DPS. So if you compare Demo here, you know, Ascension on top to Focusing Lens here, looking at AF, about a 5k disparity here for Demo, versus about a 3.2 disparity for Affliction when looking at Ascension versus Focusing Lens, right? So also factoring in universal applicability, I would give the nod, looking at this AF sim, even this being higher, probably to Ascension if you're playing AF and Demo in the upcoming tier. Then looking at Destro here very briefly as well, on top Ascension, Symbiosis, Focusing Lens. So while Lens might be higher for Affliction, like we said here, Ascension on top of the other two, and not very far behind when it comes to like Affliction in general. So looking at these sims, factoring in universal applicability and just all three specs, I would give the nod to Ascension here. Important to note here, Dark Moon Sigil Ascension can only be put on weapons, main hand or offhand. You can't put it on boots or gloves or whatever. It has to be on a weapon, main hand, offhand, or staff technically. So combining all this together, I want to go into two target sims here. Sorry, not two target, two embellishment sims here. So we have Affliction. Now, I'll point out here that I did not sim the Nerubian Writhing Armor Banding embellishment in these because it doesn't do anything in single embellishment sims. It basically empowers Ascension, right? But I will indeed I have simmed it here in these two embellishment sims, right? So looking at Affliction here with two embellishment sims, it has Focusing Lens, which we expected looking at the single embellishment comparisons, and it has Symbiosis. Going back to this, it's literally 1 and 2, what it has right here, right? But if you look down a little bit, so the top sim sitting right here, number 2, Focusing Lens, number 3, Ascendance, Focusing Lens, number 4, Ascendance, and Nerubian Embellishment, Writhing Armor Binding, whatever it's called. The difference here, about a 1600 disparity between basically Symbiosis, which is a little weird, and Shadow Flame, or double Shadow Flame. So while this might be a tiny bit higher, being Focusing Lens and Symbiosis based, you just play Ascension and this. Once again, universal relevancy. Spoilers ahead, for Destruction and Demonology, it's the best combination. While this might be simming higher, I don't think it's the play. Once again, it's just not relevant in AoE, two target fights, which Silken Court, Big Mommy in the end, the final boss, whatever her name is, the Spider Lady, there are going to be more than one target fights, where Focusing Lens, little mediocre, right? And then you have other combinations here, Focusing Lens and Dawn Thread, so on and so forth. You can dig through here if you want for more combinations, but honestly, yeah, Ascendance and Nerubian, just like this little disparity, I'm certainly playing Ascendance and Nerubian over this, and this, hands down. Moving on to Destruction here. Destro also rocking Ascendance. And we have Nerubian armor binding, whatever it's called, the Nerubian thing on your boots. What this does, to clarify, it just doubles the effectiveness of any Nerubian embellishment. For whatever reason, this is a Nerubian embellishment. No idea why. It's a Dark Moon card, but it is, so we'll take that. We have this ahead, number 1 here. Second closest combination is actually, if I can scroll down, looking at Ascendance and Focusing Lens. Third, Ascendance, and you have Nerubian here with a gem swap, same thing basically. Yeah, then you have Dawn Thread and Ascendance here. So the clear winner here is Ascendance with Nerubian embellishment on some piece of gear, you know, for destruction. And you have Demonology here to a similar extent. Ascendance and Nerubian. Ascendance, let's see where we at here. Actually, sorry, we have Blessed Weapon Grip and actually double Blessed Weapon Grip, which is interesting. There you go, it's relatively close behind here. Followed by Blessed Weapon Grip and what is this? This is Weapon Grip as well. Oh, this is the same sim essentially here. This is just changing boots out, give or take. So you basically got Ascension on top with Nerubian embellishment and, you know, Blessed Weapon Grip combos here, but not as good looking at Destro or Af with Blessed Weapon Grip, and then you have more here, Ascension and Nerubian. So there you go. TLDR for all these, the best embellishment combination right now, unless things change, is Ascendance and Writhing Armor Banding. There is a ring called Binding of Binding, which you might hear a little bit about, but I don't think it's really worth it. So like you have Binding of Binding, which is right here. Basically you bond with somebody else, empowering your gems, all that kind of stuff, which can be good. I believe Healer's making it, and I believe Og is making it, but this to me feels more like a third or fourth embellishment craft. There could be problems with overall consistency in a raid setting, if your partner dies, so on and so forth, whatever. At the same time, you can get full sockets pretty early on if you push your PvP and stuff, but I would pass on Binding a Binding for now. Unless things change, I'll make a video on it, but I'd probably pass on Binding a Binding for now and look more towards Writhing Armor Banding and Ascendance on weapons. Now, I want to get into this bug sheet here as well that Malakath has made. This is not my my worker, and this is Malakath. He has made this, and well, it is his work. These are bugs that currently exist on retail for Warlock. Number 1, I'd never played Shadow Flame. I have no idea. Maybe it's a thing, but that's that. I'm gonna skip over that. Yeah, but I've seen a handful of these in action, and some I haven't, but honestly, he's put in a lot of work, and we're going to skim this briefly. So number 1 here, channeling a Drain Soul and then refreshing it by a Nightfall proc will cause the pandemic effect of the Drain Soul, the first one, to mess with the 50% shorter channel time benefit of the Nightfall. From what I understand here, if you clip a non-pandemic Nightfall with a Nightfall-based... If you clip a non-Nightfall-based Drain Soul with a Nightfall-based Drain Soul, it won't give you the full duration reduction on the Nightfall-based Drain Soul. That's a thinker right there. Number 2, improve Rapture does not reduce the GCD of Rapture alongside the cast time reduction. To a similar extent, Perpetual Instability, the one talent nobody plays in PvE at all, also does not reduce the GCD of UA alongside the cast time reduction. Number 4, in PvP, the talent Contagion is only contributing 50% of its value, even though the PvP modifier is set at 1, not 0.5. And a big one here as well, Wither does not benefit from Death's Embrace, which could very likely be impactful on a handful of fights coming up in Narrower Palace. Demonology stuff. Spiteful or Constitution. This is the ability that whenever you cast a demonic core, it's got a chance to spawn an imp in. It will also proc a 1-shard Hand of Gul'dan, which messes with the Succulent Soul count procs from Soul Harvester's hero talent stuff. I've noticed this in gameplay. I thought it was Imp Mother procs, but it's not from time to time. It's just a demonic core being cast, a demon bolt consuming a stack, basically, by casting a 1-shard Hand of Gul'dan, which is a little funky. Likely shouldn't work that way. Shadow Touch talent is missing the Gloomhound skill Gloom Slash, but it's whitelist, so need to add that. Gloomhound's looking pretty subpar regardless now. Charhound scaling with haste. Gloomhound is not, so you're playing Red Dog everywhere, which probably needs to be looked at also. Improved Demonic Tactics, I think, currently does not increase the crit strike chance of the Felguard. Pretty big one. Demonic Brutality also doesn't seem to be working properly, neither for the player or Guardians. And just to clarify, guys, I was told some of these might have been fixed by now. I'm not totally sure, but I was sent this list and want to just, get it all out there. I'm not sure it's been fixed and hasn't been, but there's that. Number 5, Hand of Gul'dan's may consume succulent souls who have procced after its Hand of Gul'dan own cast already finished. If the succulent soul proc is faster than the Hand of Gul'dan travel time. So basically, if you're generating like if you're generating if you're basically casting a Hand of Gul'dan, which has a cast like landing animation, and right afterwards you go Demon Bolt with the Demonic Core, or get a Soul Conduit refund, which can both count towards succulent souls. It's sort of a weird staging kind of effect versus an instant cast effect. Staging being the visual landing Hand of Gul'dan. Number 6, Soul Strike being on the GCD makes using it a manual instead of auto cast prohibitive due to the constant use of GCDs by the pet with Legion Strike. This is an issue. There are times your Felguard just sits there and doesn't cast Soul Strike for a long time, which feels awkward. Taking it off the GCD really wouldn't do much. Wouldn't make anything insane. I should take it off the GCD and fix this issue. Destruction. Avatar Destruction. Overfiend, the green Smolderon. Chaos Bolts can consume Ruination. Didn't even know that. It's news to me right now. Procs. When this happens, Ruination does 0 damage. I've actually noticed this happening in game. I didn't know why. Now I probably do. That's interesting. Shouldn't be happening. Casting 2 Shadow Burns and killing a target in sequence only refunds value of 1 Shadow Burn. This has been the case for a while, I'm pretty sure. This might be intended. I'm not totally sure, but that does... yeah, I've noticed that as well. It might have even been a thing in Shadowlands, honestly, back in the day. Number 3, Channel Demon Fire may become uncastable even though you still have Immolate/Wither active. It's a very complicated bug. There's a link to this here. I'm not going to go to it in this video because I don't want to. It's a very complicated bug. I've read over it. On the forums, you want it. Hopefully it can be fixed. Indiscriminate Flames effects stack alongside Backdraft. So, Indiscriminate Flames, I'll just pull this up for you guys. This is a recent bug that we figured out, Malakath found and stuff. This says essentially whenever you conflagrate, backdraft, conflagrate, sort of same thing, increases the crit strike chance of your next Incinerate or Soulfire by 35%. This can stack. Now, this almost seems like it's intended, but then again, not at the same time. So you can have 70% crit strike chance to Incinerate / Soulfire, or 10% chance damage to Chaos Bolt at 2 backdraft stacks. Probably needs to be looked at. Havoc won't duplicate Soul Regeneration of an Infernal Bolt, which seems it's likely a bug. It could be some weird pet empowered ability not duplicating Soul Regeneration, but it's probably worth mentioning and looking at. To a similar extent, Havoc will deal the full damage of a duplicate Infernal Bolt. So there's sort of that weird non-bow there, or weird, yeah. And Bane of Havoc does not work with Mayhem, apparently. I don't PvP, but there's that. So yeah. Then we have Diabolist, Soul Harvester, and Hellcaller. Briefly here, Diabolist. Overlord sometimes will repeatedly fail to charge and deal damage to an enemy. This happens to enemies outside of any platform, in special platforms. I've noticed this also a bit in Dawnbreaker. Number 2, Ruination won't deal damage to any secondary target if the primary target dies mid-travel time. I've seen this. This is also very awkward. So if a target's very low on health, you're not sure if you can finish the Ruination cast before it dies, either cast on a different mob or just, hold till you know you can finish it. Number 3, Pitlord and Shavar will sometimes target random enemies, even outside of combat ones. I've noticed that. On dummies, they'll just spawn, start attacking the one behind me. Might be hitting. It's really weird. I've heard there's an issue in PvP as well, and these probably be looked at. Number 4, Flames of Zoroth seems to be increasing the damage of the player for more than intended. It may also not be increasing the damage of Guardian pets. Didn't know that. There you go. Number 5, the Diabolic Ritual Rotation of Overlord, Mother of Chaos, Pitlord. This is a big one. We've hit on this for a long time in beta, alpha into beta. Does not reset with raid boss pulls. It also does not reset when you wipe on bosses and die, from what I've seen. It's possible to game this for 2 ritual procs on pull and pre-pull for the Pitlord. There's a handful of things you can do here with this. This needs to be fixed. Yeah. Soul Harvester, Cuitus, I think, procs, Feast of Souls, can have the Succulent Soul consumed by Spiteful Reconstitution Demonology talents if both proc together. Shared Fate does not seem to proc from all enemies killed. Because Shadow of Death generates 3 soul shards, whether you're playing Destro Demo or AF. Beyond the 3 guaranteed succulent souls, it also rolls a chance of proccing additional succulent souls for each of the 3 soul shards generated. Got it. So you get 3 guaranteed, and then it sees 3 shards being generated and rolls again. I had no idea. That's sort of interesting. Demonic Soul currently buffs Hand of Gul'dan by both 60% effect exclusive to it, but also a 20% effect meant for Malefic Rapture. That's a little scary. Soul Conduit procs from Hand of Gul'dan can proc succulent souls, who are then consumed by the same Hand of Gul'dan who procs Soul Conduit. Let's read that again. Soul Conduit procs from Hand of Gul'dan can proc succulent souls. So the refund you're getting from Soul Conduit from Hand of Gul'dan being cast, they can proc these, who are then consumed by the same Hand of Gul'dan who procs Soul Conduit. Oh, it's a weird like, yeah, okay, so it's a weird like cast, proc, consumption kind of sequencing. Yeah, that's sort of awkward and funky. Okay. Then Hellcaller, Zalen's Cruelty and Zalen's Ferocity increase the damage of the player for more than intended. Didn't know this. It also does not buff the damage of Guardians. I think this was hit on recently. I'm not really sure. Wither before gaining stacks in that pandemic. So, I've seen this. Wither before gaining stacks does not pandemic. It also has an odd behavior with its refresh and gaining stacks for Channel Demon Fire. We've seen at times Wither not pandemicking. If you cast 2 in a row, like back to back, without stacks, it won't pandemic. Probably needs to be looked at. Refreshing Wither resets the tick timer, like the internal dot tick timer. Probably shouldn't be there. And then finally, last thing here, rounding it out, Vile Taint does not give Wither blackened souls stacks. So a handful of things here. He did mention some might have been fixed. I'm not sure exactly what has and hasn't been. But either way, that is that. Link to this down below if you want it. And yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you had any lingering questions about racial sims or embellishment sims, this, that, whatever, or just, general bugs you might have found, hopefully this video hit on some of that. If you guys want any Week Wars add-ons on the video, links to Twitch and Discord down below are for free for you guys. At the same time, the website also has them. If you want that or talent builds, whatever, the website is also a great hub for, well, all of that. Also, one massive shout out to my patrons. Always for all support on Patreon, y'all. Thank y'all a million times. Like always, I greatly appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. Now, like I mentioned at the start, we're going to have the raid review video coming out on the channel in a few days, looking at all the fights in Nerva Palace, Destro, Demo, AF, talking about what's best in the fight. Might be a lot of AF and Demo, but we'll see. We have Heroic Week this time, which means it could be tuning, will likely be tuning things between Heroic and Mythic, and Destro is buffed on Tuesday. Probably should be buffed again. Probably should get some more buffs. So we'll see where it goes, and hopefully it's in a positive direction, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.